Hello and welcome to Firearm Freedom. This is going to be a video about NFA firearms. And before we get this video started, as always, there are links down in the description below that you guys can click on to help support everything that I do here on the Firearm Freedom YouTube channel. This is a video that I knew was coming, and I've been wanting to make it for a while. It's been kind of a frustrating topic. It's always a frustrating topic. NFA is frustrating no matter what way you look at it. And there's been a lot more talk about NFA items within the past week or two with the ATF potentially relaunching electronic Form 4 submissions. Now, the reason why I say reintroducing is because they've done this before many years ago, and it did not go over well. In fact, it went so badly that that's what I believe originally got the e-form system kind of taken down for the public as a whole. And as well as that getting taken down, before it got taken down, e-form 4s were essentially taking longer than paper Form 4. So the system just did not work at all. It was a massive flop. This is not something that has launched yet. I've been seeing a lot of different YouTube videos out there, and quite frankly, these are people that just do not know what they're talking about. Coming from an employee that works full-time at a gun shop that does a significant amount of NFA processing when it comes to actually selling NFA firearms, whether it's suppressors, machine guns, short-barreled rifles, whatever. This system has not launched yet. There's a lot of folks out there that are claiming this, that, or the other thing, and the ATF is saying a lot of bold statements, throwing out emails and different things. Staying optimistic, this may be pretty good, but in the past, the ATF has not done the electronic form thing that well. Now, they are redoing the entire website, and at the actual gun shop where all of these fancy new e-forms are going to be processed, we have still not received any direction from the ATF on what this new website will look like, exactly how to submit the process, and all of those things. So they are giving, at this point, more information to the public than the actual people that are supposedly supposed to be processing these forms. So just kind of beware of a lot of companies out there that are trying to sell you suppressors right now and really don't have all the information. And the more that this stuff goes out to the public with not a lot of information, the more the system's going to get flooded day one and probably just shut down. This video is mainly going to be about the ultimate question, right? And that is NFA world. Should you get into it or should you not? And I'm not going to really cover up any of my opinions. These are just going to be everything right out in the open for you. I will say first that I own multiple NFA items. I own short barrel shotguns, short barrel rifles, and suppressors, and I own multiples of each. So when it comes to this topic, I'm pretty well versed in NFA items, and I see a lot of frustrating things in the NFA world. There's a pretty big, I'll go as far as saying, moral debate in the gun community about getting into the NFA world. It's kind of the ultimate frustrating thing you have to do, right? From my cold, dead hands, that's a saying we say a lot, and we hate the little nagging thing in the back of our mind that tells us we have to ask permission to exercise our rights. And the NFA is even worse than that. Not only do you have to ask permission to exercise a God-given right, but you actually have to pay the crown in order to do it. You have to pay $200 out of pocket just to simply buy a suppressor or buy a rifle that's a little bit shorter than usual than their arbitrary legal limit, or to make a rifle that's a little bit shorter than their arbitrary legal limit, or to have something that fires faster, or etc., etc. This is probably the toughest pill to swallow of the world that we live in today. I don't believe personally that the NFA should exist at all. I don't believe the ATF should exist at all. I don't believe a 4473 background check form should exist at all. I tend to have a pretty radical opinion when it comes to firearms and just simply freedom in regards to everything involving firearms, and a lot of people may not have that opinion. I see a lot of folks throwing blame to people that own NFA items like, oh man, you're a total cuck for the government and giving away your rights and spending money and doing all of these things. And then I see a lot of elitism in the NFA world when it comes to, hey man, I've paid, I'm a stamp collector and I have machine guns and I have my SOT and look at all the cool stuff that I own, you poor. And it goes both ways. And I'm going to try to split it down the middle a little bit. When I first got into NFA firearms, it was because of a crazy sale that was going on at a previous gun shop that I worked at where all suppressors that were in the case were 50% off. This actually covered not only a little bit of a discount off of the suppressor, but because of the significant amount off, even when I added the tax stamp to the overall cost, it still was less than I would have paid for the actual suppressor itself. I was on the edge, kind of teetering on whether or not I wanted to make this plunge into the NFA world for about a year and a half, and that's what essentially pushed me over into that NFA rabbit hole. Once I did one suppressor, I immediately did 3 because I wanted to check off a rifle suppressor, a pistol suppressor, and a rimfire suppressor all in one shot so that I would get them all back at around the same time and have everything in the collection suppressed at an incredibly reduced price. And that's exactly what I did. I know a lot of people kind of take one of 3 routes, and I saw a good buddy of mine post on his story. I DM'd him about it. Swamp Fox, shout out to you, buddy. I really appreciate you. It was so perfectly laid out, and it was essentially you're screwed with no matter what direction you choose to go in, and that says a lot about the world that we live in today, and it really kind of just resonated with me and prompted me to do this video even more. You got about 3 choices. You can not go into the NFA world, and you can try to stay on the right side as a law-abiding citizen with a standard legal length rifle, so it'd be about a 16-inch barrel and an overall setup with a stock. And then you could try to maybe dabble in the shorter stuff with pistol braces, which may or may not be going away here shortly. And that still sucks. You're still neutered, and you're still essentially listening to what the NFA wants you to do, whether you like it or not. You're just simply not paying for it, and you're not asking to be on a registry. That's an important point there that we'll talk about in a second. The second option you can take is paying, right? The ultimate cucking of your rights and paying for a $200 tax stamp, registering. So you are actually going on a federal registry of firearms and you are paying the ATF $200. You're giving them fingerprint cards, photos, filling out forms, and there is a lot of legal BS that goes around just simply owning the item and what you can do with it, who can use it, where you can travel with it, and all of these other things. And that's an option. Again, of course, that sucks as well, and you're not really winning by going that route. And it's not something that you should be proud of. And then finally, you can live what I tend to call the full patriot life, right? Which is just throw caution to the wind and have stuff that's shorter, have stuff that fires faster, and have stuff that fires faster and it's shorter and it's quieter without doing any of the above, right? And that is going to end in a few different ways. I see a lot of awesome folks doing just what I had said there, and they live on just fine. I give all kudos to them. They have a massive, massive set of balls to live that life. And I find a lot of them tend to be younger, don't have really as much family life to worry about there when it comes to immediate loved ones that rely on you. That can end in a few different ways. Unfortunately, not a lot of them are good. That can end in either a very long jail sentence, which really sucks, or it can end in you not really living anymore, which also sucks. Or there is also a small potential that, you just kind of fly under the radar and just, live on no problems. I think a lot of people kind of live that life and they don't fully understand the route that it could potentially take. They kind of think, in this naive way, like, they're not going to worry about it. It's not going to affect me, no problem. And then the moment they get a knock on a door, it's a big issue. And it's important to note the decision that you're making with that. There's a lot of people that fully understand that decision and continue to go that way. And again, more power to you. But there is a very large potential that one of those two first things could absolutely happen to you. And that's a decision you have to be willing to make. If it didn't strike you as frustrating yet, these 3 decisions that were given here in this country today, then I don't know what video you're listening to, but you should probably click on another one because this should get you enraged. It should get you incredibly frustrated that these are the options that we are presented with to just simply exercise our rights that are given to us at birth. We don't have to do anything for those rights. Those are rights that we should just have. Now, I want to address the elitism in the NFA community. I see this a lot on threads on Reddit, like the NFA thread. And there's no shame going out to the NFA thread. I just see it a lot here because a lot of people have a lot of things. I also see this in the gun tubing community, right? I see this with a lot of YouTubers. A lot of you guys don't understand that YouTubers out there that are showcasing awesome machine guns and belt feds and how to make this machine gun and how to make that machine gun and how will an oil filter suppressor work. This is all clickbait. I hate to break it to you guys, but they're not living that full patriot life that we talked about and doing all of this stuff not under the ATF's eyes. That's absolutely not what's going on. In fact, all of these people have their FFL and SOT, which means they've gone even more down the throwing your rights away route and have gotten essentially the same things that gun shops have to get that actually give them the ability to manufacture their own machine guns. They don't even own those machine guns. Their business owns those machine guns, and the ATF could come in at any time and really decide that they don't want you to have those machine guns anymore. They could come in at any time and audit those machine guns or those suppressors or anything else that you're making. You have to have books that are constantly updated. And this is kind of the funny thing that I see because they get on the screen a lot of the time, and you know, I get it, but they'll come out and they'll have all of this elitism, like look at all this stuff that I have, when they've kind of made the ultimate backstab to their rights. So that's just important to understand. It's important to realize, and there's nothing wrong with getting your SOT if you really want to just demonstrate these machine guns. But I do think there's something wrong in not being just humble about it and kind of just almost ashamed about it a little bit. That's how I tend to be. It's how I try to be. And there's also, I think, something wrong in having all of those licenses to do what you do and then step on screen and tell other people that might not know any better about your licenses to just throw caution to the wind and just send it when that you yourself are not full sending it. That's kind of bullshit. So just, again, be aware of that, guys. You see the elitism in just the standard NFA world. You know, I'll post a photo on Reddit or I'll post a photo somewhere of an SBR with a suppressor on it. They'll be like, oh man, I'm still poor. I haven't got into the NFA world. Somebody will comment that. And I'll comment back, look, man, I'm proud of the gun. I'm proud of the gun itself. I'm ashamed of the NFA items, you know, and it's easy to get caught up in that elitism. When I first got my suppressors, I was young and honestly caught up in it. I'm like, oh man, stamp collector, I did it. I find you go through this process and you're all of a sudden so excited just to get something you should have been able to leave with at the gun shop the day you purchased it. And I posted photos on social media, you know, hashtag stamp collector. This is the elitism that comes along with the NFA world, and it's kind of a total joke. You should be ashamed of yourself. I'm ashamed of myself. I'm ashamed of my NFA items. It's not something I'm proud of. It's something that I do enjoy at the range. I enjoy being able to shoot without hearing protection. I enjoy being able to train people and show them at the range how to shoot with a gun that's a little bit quieter. I also think there are some practical purposes to something like a rifle suppressor that you're using it to hunt with or something else. So these are all things to consider when you go into the NFA world. Just understand that it's something to be humble about and it's not something to brag about. These are decisions, and all three of these decisions suck. And whatever one you choose, you're not choosing necessarily the wrong decision. It's just something to fully understand and grasp your mind about. When it comes to the people that are on the opposite end of the aisle, I see a lot of blame thrown out. Like, oh man, you got NFA stuff. You're an idiot. Why do you do that? You cuck. You're cucking away your rights. You kind of look like an idiot yourself, because a lot of folks that just are, you know, saying all of these things, you're not cutting down your barrel. You're sticking with a 16-inch barrel. You're abiding by all the laws that are on the books. You're filling out a 4473, which is essentially a registry without you signing off saying, yes, I know this is a registry, because at any point in time, the ATF could go and pull any 4473s they want, and they do that frequently when they're doing trace requests and other things. You're abiding by all of these laws that you're yelling at somebody else for abiding by. And it creates this really stupid dynamic. And it's just, kind of funny to me. Now, I see a lot of the time the people that are actually living that full patriot life, they're the only ones that aren't running their mouth about it. And that's kind of the funny thing, because they're the only ones that really could run their mouth about it, and they choose not to most of the time. Now, when it comes to the biggest decision in this, which is should you get into the NFA world, and if you should, how many NFA items should you own? You have to really address, is this going to be a practical thing for you? Does it hold a practical purpose? The big question comes to how many NFA items should you own? If you have 2 pistols and 1 SBR, should you get any more SBRs? Did you already screw your rights up enough you don't want to get more SBRs? Should you have only 1 suppressor? You don't want to have to pay another tax stamp? Well, that question, in my opinion, should be answered, of course, by no one else but you, the person watching this video. But it's also important to understand that, quite frankly, if you've already made that plunge into the NFA world, whether it's $200, $400, or $600, you have to shill out to this incredibly unconstitutional agency to just simply own these items. I don't know that it matters one way or another. If you have 1 SBR, you're kind of in it already, and if you have 2 other pistols and you want to make it an SBR on both of them, then it's the same one way or another. You already made the plunge, so I don't know that there's too much of a difference with making the plunge once, twice, or 3 times and just sending it to 2 of the guns in the collection. The big decision would be the first plunge. That's the one that I think is ultimately going to be your decider. If you have no NFA items yet, then obviously taking the plunge and doing all of these things all at one time may not be the best decision for you. If you already have a few NFA items, then it doesn't matter at that point. If you want 1 more, 2 more, 3 more, 5 more, 10 more, whatever, you're in it at that point. The one thing that I think definitely applies here when specifically we're talking about short-barreled rifles these days, if you have a pistol, right, and you're going to throw caution to the wind if they have legality issues with certain braces or accessories on pistols, and you never use that gun other than your own private property, and quite frankly, if you live in the middle of nowhere and you have private property, I would say most of those folks are living that third option of the full patriot life that we talked about before, and it's very understandable as to why, because who gives a shit? They're in the middle of nowhere. The moment that that gun is used in a defensive situation, and say it's an AR pistol, there have been multiple reported cases of an ATF agent being called in by a prosecutor, looking over the gun and deciding, you know what, we think that's an NFA firearm that you made illegally, now you're going to jail, whether it was a justified shoot or not. And that's something to be very, very, very conscious of. So decide what you're using for self-defense. For me personally, I every day carry a rifle to work with me. I work at a gun shop, so it's very easy for me to do that, and I'm going to take advantage of it. I want something small and compact that's going to fit in a bag. That's really easy for me to carry around. A standard full-size rifle is tough to do that, and here in Pennsylvania, I can't legally keep a standard full-size rifle loaded in my vehicle, whereas a pistol or a short-barreled rifle falling under the NFA, I could. So for me, a pistol fits perfectly in that category, but if I were to use it in defense, who knows what's going to happen to me when the ATF actually looks at it and they can arbitrarily say whatever they want. So that, for me, is a very practical role for a short-barreled rifle in a rule of law situation. I hope this kind of addressed some of your questions about NFA. I hope you guys can understand where I'm coming from. It's not my intention to offend any of you, whatever side of the aisle you are on this stupid topic that's just very frustrating all the way around. If you guys have any other questions, feel free to throw them down below in the comment section, and you guys know I absolutely will get back to you. While you're down there, head up to the description to check out those links, and as always, stay tuned for more great videos to come soon.